What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bulls Latest. Your host, Matt Johnson here. I want to kick off today's show and talk a ton today about the Bulls' most underrated move this offseason, and that's the addition of Isaac Okoro. Now, when you look at the Bulls, they haven't made any blockbuster moves to this point in the offseason. The front office has definitely shown more progress than in recent years by making a few meaningful additions, though. Signing Trey Jones to a 3-year extension, I think that's a great move for Chicago. The drafting of Noah Asenge, I'm very excited about him. I know I talked a lot to you guys about him post-draft as well as kind of leading into the draft, as he's really a young, raw talent who has a lot of capability there. Lachlan Olbrich, he's going to start majority in the G League, but I think he's an exciting piece. All those guys are going to bolster the front court, and then obviously you extended head coach Billy Donovan and signed guard Yuki Kawamura. He was a big standout in the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. He had a very impressive showing, so there's some optimism to be had there. The move that has flown under the radar to this point comes from their singular trade of the offseason, though, and that was acquiring Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball, who was sent to Cleveland. The 24-year-old wing in Isaac Okoro could be easy to overlook right now, but this deal could surprise a lot of people once the season tips in October. And I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of Bulls fans very surprised at what he brings to the table in the Bulls uniform there. With an increased role in Chicago, I think you're going to unlock a lot of things in Okoro. Okoro could be ready to take a significant jump as a scorer while still being able to guard the opponent's best player every night. I think you're going to see him matched up with and in consistent basis here, the team's best player multiple times here. I think he is that capable on defense. You're going to see that, and that's a very exciting addition to a coach in Billy Donovan who's really transitioning the identity of this team into more of a defensive-first organization, and I think Okoro fits that mold there. So very excited to see him kick off his Bulls career. Getting into more of why that Okoro trade is a win for the Bulls. It's a win because, when you look at this guy, he entered the league in 2020. He was a top draft pick by Cleveland. And then, you just look at the difference in games played and the availability percentage between Lonzo and Okoro since Okoro was drafted. Lonzo Ball has played in just 125 of a possible 400 regular season games, coming out to 31% of possible games played. Okoro, on the other hand, has appeared in 334 of 400 possible games, coming out to an availability rate of 83.5% there. With this trade, the Bulls gain a player who's both durable and still developing, and he's capable of giving them consistent minutes and elite perimeter defense off the bench there. I'm super excited to see him add those things to this roster and what the Bulls are going to turn into in more of a defensive-first mindset here. The only real loss in Lonzo Ball is that you lose his playmaking ability as well as his shooting abilities. He did provide a spark in shooting the basketball. I think his abilities to do both of those things are going to be missed to some extent. But when you look at this Bulls roster with Kobe White's emergence and Josh Giddey's arrival last season, Chicago is more in need of a defensive identity at this point, something I've talked about many times throughout this show. And I think you move into more of a defensive identity than another score-first creator. Okoro fits seamlessly into this roster when you really look at it and get down to the studs. Okoro gives the Bulls the perfect mix of potential and maturity that this team has been shifting towards. I think given his lack of production in Cleveland, you're going to see the potential kind of skyrocket here in Chicago, and he is a mature player. When you look at his play style dating back to college, this guy's really going to thrive here in Chicago, I think. And I think he ties very well to the Bulls' future as well. I just think when you look at where this Bulls team's at, respectfully, Isaac Okoro isn't a superstar, and he's most likely he's not gonna turn into this superstar that you're gonna want to see, this big name. But I think in a season where the Bulls will be fighting for relevance in a wide open Eastern Conference, something I've talked about many times now, with all these injuries in the East, the Bulls are very live, and I think with Vucevic and Kobe White not being moved like a lot of us expected at this point, the Bulls are very much alive in this conference. This is the kind of move that gives this team a sense of direction and a noticeable impact. I think if Okoro stays healthy and motivated, he's still improving. He could be exactly what this roster has been missing in my eyes. if recent NBA success has taught us anything, it's that it's not always the biggest offseason moves that change a franchise's trajectory. I mean, just look at the Indiana Pacers a year ago. This was a team who really jumped and jolted into the top of the Eastern Conference with a lot of role players and a lot of team basketball. And I think that's more of the formula in the modern day NBA, to be honest with you. I think stacking superstars isn't always the best answer. We've seen that not work out in a number of situations, dating back to even like Brooklyn. When they had KD, Harden, I mean, it just didn't stack up there. And Kyrie, it just, you stack these star-studded players. Look at Oklahoma City Thunder, for example. They're a very young roster. Granted, they are kind of heavy in terms of talent, but a lot of young guys coming into their own there and a lot of contributors to that dominant NBA championship run a year ago. So, I just think when you're the Bulls, trading for Isaac Okoro might be the first step towards that goal of kind of jumping your way into contention in the Eastern Conference. So just a little bit about Isaac Okoro. I haven't touched upon him much, but he is, to this point, the Bulls' biggest move of the offseason. So I wanted to close today's show. I saw something that was interesting to me, and it really kind of hit home with the overview of the NBA in this topic. But sports betting's impact on the NBA has become something that has been a problem in most recent years here since it had been widely legalized throughout the United States. You're starting to see the impact take place this summer as well in Major League Baseball. There have been numerous players suspended and put on the list of suspensions there because of activity related to gambling and suspicious activity given to pitches and certain pitches where they fall over or it's not even close. So that's interesting. But in terms of the NBA, Michael Porter Jr. said on the One Night with Steiny podcast this week that the proliferation of sports betting has distracted from the integrity and enjoyment of the game, and it's only going to get worse. He said, with all of this going on, it's not going to be a good spot here. Obviously, you all remember the biggest, sports betting scandal to date, arguably. Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s younger brother, was banned from the NBA in 2024 for his role in a gambling scheme. Jonte admitted in court in July 2024 to removing himself from 2 games in the 2023-24 season to benefit associates who'd bet the under on his statistics. Now, this is something that's very alarming because it really does. It messes with the integrity of this sport. And, with how normalized the gambling world has become within sports and how easy and accessible it is to place an online mobile wager now, it's something that you look at these games and you may not necessarily catch it right away, but when you look back at it, there's a reason why a lot of these players are getting caught, and there's a ton of players, I guarantee you, that are not getting caught to this point. And that's the most concerning part, is that it's going on, I think, in a much bigger way. In Michael Porter Jr. talking directly about his brother takes some guts there, because that's something that kind of tarnished the Porter Jr. name. Jonte is a guy who didn't have as much of an impact in the NBA in terms of talent as Michael Porter Jr. has, but definitely something that's going to stick to his name there. Jonte claimed the scheme was designed to pay off gambling debts there, and that's the other thing, is that it could be a lot deeper for these athletes than just, wanting to make a little extra money. They could be doing this as part of a massive motivation in terms of kind of clearing their name from other stuff, which is it's kind of concerning there. So, Porter Jr. went on to add in that podcast that he believes sports betting should be restricted to in-person, not online, and only made available in Las Vegas. Now, we all know that's probably not going to happen. The industry has already boomed to a point where it's available almost in every state throughout the United States, or a majority of them at this point. And it's become such a big marketing addition to the NBA. You see during halftime commercials with TNT, and now going to move over to NBC. I'm sure they're going to incorporate the sports betting stuff there. So it's a topic that is an interesting one, in that it's really boomed onto the scene in recent years here, given the scandalous activity from some of these athletes among majority of major sports here. I mean, you're seeing it in college baseball. You're seeing a lot of things flagged. There was a thing that came out the other day in terms of Venmo transactions for a college baseball player. I think that it's now in the news, or a college football quarterback, I should say, that was, related to betting on college baseball. And so that's something that's in the news as well. You're constantly seeing this stuff. And Jonte Porter was really the biggest NBA one to date here. So although multiple players have been talked about and rumored to have been involved in this type of activity, Jonte Porter was the one who made the national headlines there, and Michael Porter Jr. coming out and speaking a little bit on that podcast, One Night with Steiny. I would recommend giving a look at it if you guys are interested in this topic. It's very informative. I think MPJ does a great job of kind of directing the content towards how things need to evolve with that topic in the NBA. So overall, something I thought would be interesting to end today's show with. Again, I want to thank all you guys for joining me on today's episode of Bulls Latest. Let me know in the comments what you think about the betting impact in the NBA. Are you big on Okoro? Do you think he's going to be a player that's going to have sustained success in Billy Donovan's system with the Bulls as well? I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So again, thanks for joining me on today's episode, and we will see you guys tomorrow.